Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you all for your patience. Again, another long day of meetings. I should actually hand the chair over to Councillor Sikora, who did such a great job chairing the last two meetings. He's kept us on time. We thank him very much for that. There's some skill there. And I want to acknowledge as well World Osteoporosis Day. It actually it applies to both genders. Dig into it. As we get older, we lose bone density, and it costs an awful lot, both in terms of our medical care, but also in terms of our quality of life. So have some yogurt, some milk, some Parmesan cheese, and let's enjoy life more. Not you particularly, Mr. Clerk. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our first item this evening is the minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, October 6th. Recommendations to approve those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor Hodge. All in favour, opposed, carried unanimously.
Item 2 is minutes of the Coquitlam 125th Anniversary Steering Task Force meeting held on Wednesday, October 1st. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. To receive, all in favour, opposed, carried unanimously.
An item of business arising out of that committee's meeting concerns the draft plan for a heritage or event plaza at Town Centre Park. The committee's recommendation is that Council direct staff to pursue Canada Heritage grant funding and initiate planning for a new special event and festival site in Town Centre Park at the northeast shore of Lafarge Lake in advance of the 2016 Coquitlam 125th Anniversary celebrations.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. All in favour, opposed, carried unanimously. With our thanks to the committee.
Item 3 concerns a temporary use permit for a childcare use at 277 Schoolhouse Street. Prior to putting forward the staff recommendation, I would ask the Mayor to call for speakers. Thank you very much.
A temporary use permit. We run a mini public hearing. Are there any speakers to this item? Are there any speakers to this item? Third and final time. Are there any speakers to this? There we go. Come on up.
I just have something quick I'd like to read.
So stand right there, and then you have to say your name and address for the record, and then talk as long as you want, as long as it's less than 5 minutes.
My name is Sarah Kerrigan, and my residence address is 680 Wilmot Street in Coquitlam. Good evening. My name is Sarah Kerrigan. My husband, Rory, and I are the owners of Kerrigan Gymnastics Academy. Our business has been in operation for over 7 years, and we've had the pleasure of teaching thousands of children and families. We've offered classes, holiday camps, professional day camps, teacher strike camps, and field trips to preschools and schools. We also provide our facility to share families, and recently we have partnered with the Canucks Autism Group, offering our facility programs and staff free of charge to children with autism. We also provide donations to local schools to help with their fundraising needs. We are here tonight because we would really like to add a much-needed childcare program for our members. With the expansion of the Millardville area and the expected increase of residents, it's only going to increase the demand for recreational sports programs like ours and the need to provide childcare to our members. As a parent, Coquitlam resident, and businesswoman, I've had the opportunity to see and hear firsthand from a lot of our members the need for more childcare spots. We've built wonderful relationships with our members, and a great deal of them have been coming to our business for multiple years. We are constantly trying to keep up with requests from our members and provide them with the services they are asking for. It's never easy for a parent to drop their children off with someone else to take care of them on a daily basis while they head to work or get their daily things done. Now, not just one parent, but both parents these days are having to work. Our members know from experience and dealings with us that we are going to look after their children in our caring environment through physical activity and education. We don't just strengthen their physical development, but the social and mental development as well. Our child care program would be for 3 to 5-year-olds that are already attending or have attended classes with us before. It would be taught by 2 early childhood educator staff to the maximum of 16 children. The program would operate between 8:30 and 3:30 p.m. on weekdays. These times do not interact with any other programs we offer at our facility, leaving ample parking for the parents to drop off and pick up their children. We have exterior lighting in our parking and roundabout drop-off zone and street lights on Booth Avenue. Children will never be outside past 3 p.m., giving ample daylight even in winter months. The Childcare has dedicated space upstairs for educational and social learning with 2 bathrooms. We've gone through months of preparation and thousands of dollars to meet the guidelines laid out by provincial regulations, including outdoor space. We took the licensing officer on a walk from our facility on Booth Avenue to the school across the street that has a covered area and a park. Based on what she saw, we have been given conditional approval for the Childcare. The program would also have access to our gymnastic facilities and play equipment, which meets the fitness and outdoor requirements set out in the Childcare regulations. Rain or shine, my son is outside during recess and lunch at his school, that does have a limited undercover space. These children would be educated while receiving a physical, active outlet for all the energy they have, a place for them to meet new friends and learn how to become a strong, confident individual at an early age. Our final step for our proposed childcare requires approval by Coquitlam Council, which is why we're here today. We're not really located in an industrial area. We're in a commercial recreational space. And directly across Booth Avenue to the north are several medium-density condominiums and townhouses. We have hundreds of children coming and going to our programs. Some of the programs include walks to local parks, going to zone bowling and the movie theaters, all year round without any issues over the past years. We use the sidewalk on the residential side of Booth Avenue. The location of our business has been a gymnastics facility for over 20 years. Directly behind our facility is Rocky Point CrossFit and the Martial Arts Academy. Both businesses also use the surrounding area to go on runs and walks to the parks nearby, all without incident. The safety of our members is our #1 priority and will always be a cornerstone of our business. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight and considering our request for a temporary use permit.
Thank you very much. Got a question from Councillor Sikora.
No question, Mayor. I just, when the time comes, I'd like to move approval on this.
Okay. But we might have a question from Councillor Asmussen.
Thank you very much. Just through the applicant, you're applying for a temporary use permit, which means this is not a permanent application, it's only a temporary application. And in the report, you're talking about the industrial land zoning that we've gone through from 9 down to 1. Within that, staff still anticipates not recommending childcare facilities within that zone. So my question would be to you, if that happens, it's just, what would you do with the daycare?
It would have to close.
It would have to close.
Yeah.
If we were granted the temporary permit and this did go through later on when it comes
the new
to
industrial
council.
zone came in.
Yeah.
And you understand that, and you realize that could happen.
Yes.
And you're prepared for that.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure because I just want to clear on that because the temporary use is not a permanent use that we're asking for in the daycare.
Yes, we've put in. We've got the space. It's there. It's ready to go to get some children in there and try and use the space. So we do understand, even if it is just temporarily, we'd like to still be able to do it temporarily. And if that does happen, then we will deal with that.
But I think what we're hoping is that the temporary. Sorry, it was Rory Kerrigan.
Thank you.
Same
very
address,
much.
680
Yep,
Wilmot
that's
Street.
fine.
Is that through the temporary use, it will demonstrate that the staff concerns may not be, as critical, and that they would allow to adjust the bylaws to allow us to do it when they do the final rezoning of the whole property.
Yeah, because we are trying. One thing is to clean up our industrial zones. We've got a lot of things in some of our industrial zones that
That's right. Yeah.
don't work properly. So
Yeah.
But I just want to make clear
Yeah.
that part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Cirillo.
I just wanted to say I'm very familiar with this property as well as the gym. My daughter uses it, and also during the school strike, I know that it was very important for parents, including myself, to have somewhere to take their child when school was not in, so thank you so much for that. I did have a question for staff on the strategic goal. It says that this application does not appear to align with the city's corporate objectives, and I just had a question. What were the city's corporate objectives that it didn't align with?
Mr. McIntyre, with which corporate objectives did this not align?
I don't have those listed here in the report, but that was the report author's interpretation. The strategic plan objectives are fairly broad-reaching, so it wasn't felt that the application fit with any of those, but it was noted that as a business expansion, it does meet with the economic objectives.
And my other question was the RM3 and the RM2 and the RS1 across the street, and I know Booth goes all the way down to Care. I mean, we understand even when we do our industrial zones that these residential places are not leaving, right? So that if we're going to be talking about noise and smells and pollutants, that we keep in mind that we have right across the street a whole hundreds of residential units, right? Like, we know that. I just want to make sure that when we're looking at the zones for Booth and Schoolhouse, that we understand that this is really half a residential area. Do we acknowledge that as a city?
Your Worship, I think it's an obvious reality there that both the official community plan has the residential, some single family a little further to the east and north, and multifamily to the north, and the zoning reflects that. It's well before my time here. I think it just is based on sort of the history of development in the area. I believe the industrial activities were there first, and they evolve over time, but as Councillor Zarilla points out, we will have on occasion these adjacencies where there could be potential incompatibilities. Obviously, these two neighboring uses have been coexisting for many years.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just wanted to point that out because as we're anticipating the rezones, it may not be just as easy to just go from multiple zones to one or two. We might have to make exceptions all the time, but I'm totally fine with this just because I'm aware of many parents that use this service already, and I think, how many kids come through there in a week right now?
600 or 700 or so.
600 or 700 kids come through already, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. This is a complicated one. So on page 2, you list all the businesses that are there. And when I look at those, they would not seem to be the type of businesses that would fit into your new, are you calling it B2? Where did I find it? B1 business. Is that correct?
To the chair, it really is a mix in that complex in terms of the industrial and commercial type of business activities.
The reason I'm asking Mr. McIntyre is this. I'm quite familiar with this property, and when I look at the fact that the buildings, I mean, are all, there's many buildings, so we're going to deal with just one building, building number 3. So I ask you then, when you look at all the neighboring buildings like automotive repair, ducting, then there's gymnastics, then there's equipment, then there's martial arts, then there's a bakery. I mean, it's like the M9 used to be, the kitchen drawer, right, where everything that you don't have a place for goes. And then, of course, we did allow an accountant's office to go in there. So my question to you, or perhaps to the proponents, I doubt very much that the owner would have objected to you trying to do this because, of course, you can rent more space. It's exactly. But have you heard from the owner of the property as to whether he might like to look at doing something different totally in zoning with existing building 3, and maybe that would be more in tune with some of the businesses that he has? So have you spoken to him at all?
Through the chair, let me try to respond on that. And if the applicants, I think they might have a closer relationship with the landlord than I do. I think that the property is certainly evolved over time. I think there was a mix of zoning on the lands going back many years. I think as opportunities came up and there was an interest on the property owner's part to accommodate a new tenant, a rezoning was done or an interpretation was made. So at the end of the day now, the end result is we've got a real mixed bag there. there's a wide range of uses and business activities on the site.
And I guess what I have to say to you is when I look at B1, which we're trying to go to as an improvement, it still doesn't take in some of the uses that are actually there and working. And sometimes if you have a little wagon and it's still wheeling along, why change it? Why move the wheels, you know?
And again, through the chair, and that was the point I was getting to. I think many of the uses that are there, existing, active now, would fit within the B1 zones. Some would not, based on the draft zone we have brought forward. And we face this challenge in other sites across the community as well. Can we resort to a site-specific zoning that enables those uses that are there previous?
But that grandfathers and all that does is just mess up everything. So I'm thinking maybe we have to have a little chat about some of these funny things that you never anticipate coming into your community and do not fit anywhere. So to the proponents, I'm quite in favor of letting you have a temporary use permit. But my problem is that it then creates a precedent for someone in another industrial area to come in and say, oh, well, we want one too. And you're in a very, very unique situation with townhouses across the street and, you know, or not townhouses, I'm sorry, but apartments. And it is a very unique area. And I don't think this area is all grown up and really knows what it is yet. So I'm willing to take the flyer. But I will tell you this, if I vote for it and you come to me 2 years from now and we decide that you are not allowed in that zone, don't be offended if we turn you down flat, or if I do. I can't speak for anyone else.
It was mentioned by the property owner that a way that the staff could eliminate the problem of setting a precedent is that it could be written that we're in a commercial recreational space adjacent to residential property, and we're on a second floor mezzanine, which would very limit the amount of other industrial type spaces that would be able to apply for.
No, I am not going to reduce industrial uses because we need industrial uses here. We need jobs and we need security.
It's already recreational commercial property.
Well, that's my problem right now. There's things in there that aren't industrial, and that's why I'm saying for a temporary use permit, I don't mind giving you a attempt at it, but as long as you realize that, I think Councillor Asmundson mentioned it, that, you know, a year from now or 2 years from now, whenever it is, you're going to have to move out. You know, you can't come running and saying, oh, well, you know, we moved in here and it's not, you know, everything's fine. Absolutely. Because we're taking a real flyer here to do this because of this special circumstance of where this building is.
Apparently next year there'll be a rezoning of the whole, and depending on what happens with that, is we'll know, and we won't. And
you'll know, and if it doesn't go in your favor, as long as you know that, we're having another little baby, I see, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And,
thank you. Yeah.
So just know that this is a temporary, being the big word.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that we've spent as much, I don't think we would come back.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I just wondered, how many jobs does your gymnastics club right now provide?
We currently have 15 employees that help us run our business. 15.
Okay,
yes.
That's great. And you mentioned 2 early childhood education specialists in addition to the current one?
Yes, they would be in addition, yes.
Great. Okay. Well, I went and had a look at the facility on the outside and the inside, and was very impressed, and just wondered, would any of the children be ever allowed to go around the back side of it, or would it always be the front that you'd be focusing on?
No, but also the children would never ever be anywhere without 2 coaches or the early childhood educators with them, and they would never really have a need to go to the back unless we were doing a field trip to the Martial Arts Academy, which we do. They come to us, we come to them. So it would be, you know, something like that, but it would be led by the two early childhood. Anywhere they go, everywhere, they would always be with the 2 early childhood educators, always.
And in terms of dropping off, picking up, like parents would normally not use the back part of the facility?
The back is not an entrance at all, no. The back is just an emergency exit.
Okay. And in terms of setting a precedent, I think I agree with Councillor Reid. I mean, it's such a unique facility. It's already being used for sort of almost like a childcare purpose anyways. So I think we could probably argue against the precedent. And I just think, you know, if I was a 5-year-old boy, there's nowhere else I'd rather be than in that facility for 4 hours a day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think it's a great combination of two programs that uses the facility when it's not being used, and you have the school close by. So I think I'm willing to give it a try as well.
Thank you. And thank you for recalling your 5-year-old days. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have to say I suspect that there are some days when both Councillor Wilson and I would prefer to be in your facility and wherever we happen to be. I don't have any questions for the Kerrigans, and I'm a little uncertain as to where we're at, because some of us are debating and some of us are listening to the public hearing, and I'm assuming that in a few moments you'll be finding out whether there are any other speakers, and then,
I will be.
Then we will address each other, and we won't keep the Kerrigans standing there.
I left some laxity on the questions, yes, because some of it was questions and some of it was
Sure. No, no. Just didn't want to miss my opportunity to debate, but that'll come later. And
it will come later.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sure there are 16 other people who want to speak to this.
Thank you.
Anybody else speaking to this? Questions? Thank you very much for coming up. Are there any other speakers to this item? Are there any other speakers to this item? The third and final time, are there any other speakers to this item? Seeing none, we'll call that closed. Councillor Nicholson, you had something.
Well, it would be my opportunity to move that we not decline temporary use permit, but rather allow it. Second. Or was it already sort of moved in the middle of the public hearing?
It was kind of sort of moved, but...
Okay. Well, the clerk will decide who moved and who seconded, but it's on the floor.
Is there any discussion?
I have recorded Councillor Nicholson as the mover, and I have
okay. Sorry.
Other movers.
We tried. Councillor Nicholson moved. Councillor Zerillo seconds.
And then if I could go on and speak to it.
To not decline.
To not decline.
Not to decline, no,
Right.
it's approved.
To approve.
Yeah. It would always be better, rather than the double negative, to actually approve.
I've styled it as a positive motion that Council approve temporary use permit.
Yes, he has chosen to not accept the not decline of the non-motion.
Yeah. And we'll add the secondary phrase that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign, to execute the agreement.
Yeah, to be authorized to refuse to fail to sign. Okay.
And I'm sure the Kerrigans will read the minutes carefully to find out what we really did.
Well, I will
hopefully
too,
it'll be clear to them by the time we're done.
Okay, the motion is to accept, to approve the application, and I've got Councillor Nicholson's done.
No, I'm not, Your Worship.
No, trust me, you're done. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will try to be brief. On the corporate objectives question that Councillor Zerillo raised, I looked through our strategic planning document, and I had a great deal of difficulty finding something that I could fit to this. And I think that's something that we all have to look at very carefully the next time we look at our strategic planning documents, because I can't believe that we don't have a corporate objective that would support the provision of quality childcare in an area where it's needed and could be well used. A corporate objective that would provide good employment at home in Coquitlam for people who live in Coquitlam, and that's simply one of the bases. And then I have a question for staff. So I did look at the distance of travel to get to the playground right across the street, and I think I've raised this before. It's too bad Ms. Mohoric isn't here, but it's a long way from Brunette to Lougheed Highway. And it looked to me as though a crosswalk straight into the playground would be an ideal kind of a situation. I know it might impede a little bit of traffic, but pedestrians and bikes having an increasing level of recognition in the way we do our planning, and I hope that's something that will be looked at by staff after all my colleagues and I have approved this. Thank you. I am done.
You're done. Thank you very much. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have no problem with this one, Mayor. I think, you know, that it's a temporary use. And, you know, the one thing about it, that there's election coming up November 15th. So let the future council members decide what should be after they finish their 3 years or whatever it is, what should happen with this site, whether they continue or not continue. It won't be up to us today to make that decision, but after November 15th, if we're still here, we'll be able to make that decision. But I have no problem with approving for the temporary use. I think it's a good use, and I'll support it.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you, and I will support it as well. I'm very impressed with the amount of public support of this and that we've seen in terms of the paperwork we have in front of us, the presentation from the owners. You know, this kind of reminds me in a way of something that came before us a little while ago, although it wasn't for temporary use, it was for a rezoning, a spot rezoning for a type of business that just seemed to make so much sense that that we couldn't believe that there was a bylaw there that would prevent this company from expanding and taking up this new location. Certainly, I would have a difficulty if this facility was in the middle of an industrial area or commercial area, but as been pointed out, I think it's quite significant. It's right on the edge and it faces residential. And there are other places around like gymnastics and fitness, recreational gym, martial arts studio that aren't that far removed in terms of people business, people-oriented business. And it's been said around here, certainly Councillor Nicholson talked about the importance of quality childcare. It seems like we'd really be getting something like that here. So temporary use permit, and I hope they find a way of making this last even longer, but I'm certainly in support of the temporary use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Hodge.
Yes, these applications are sometimes kind of tough because, when you look at the application and you read the zoning bylaws and the rules, and if you just went by what was on paper, certainly I could appreciate where staff is coming from. But when you actually delve into a little deeper and you look at the facility, and as somebody who's sort of familiar with the with the operation and everything, I feel comfortable giving the applicant a temporary permit. And I think that's just goes to show that when there's community support for something, and when a proponent comes forward with a good thought out proposal, that it is worth looking at. And I'm completely comfortable supporting the temporary use. Thank you.
Thank you. I myself am a little bit. One of the councillors mentioned that he's surprised that there isn't a provision in our strategic plan that suggests that a wide range of daycare and childcare opportunities isn't one of our strategic objectives. I also am surprised that the protection of industrial land isn't actually there yet, even though it's one of the things we strive for. And this one is a fringe industrial land. We don't have the purity of industrial that we have in other areas. And in many cases we've had argued before us, and I've argued myself, that the purity of industrial land isn't particularly good, because then we don't have the coffee shop, the services for the folks that work there. And so I'm contemplating whether daycare is one of those, childcare is one of those things that might legitimately be an industrial land because of it provides a greater full service kind of land use. So I'm going to support the temporary use on this one, largely because I want to understand a little bit more how it works, and I do want to see us explore whether this is one of those services that on the United Boulevard corridor, for example, might be relevant. So I'm fine with that. Anybody else? The motion is to approve the temporary use permit. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with it. Thank you.
The next item, item 4, is a development permit authorization for constructing a new industrial maintenance building and drive-through wash bay at 51 Glacier Street. Recommendations that council approve the signing and sealing of this DP for 51 Glacier Street and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute it.
Moved by Councillor Rasmussen, seconded by Councillor Sikora. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is a zoning bylaw text amendment to the M9 light industrial zone in order to permit an office use at 104-1550 Hartley Street. This is bylaw number 4515. Staff recommendations that council give first reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4515 and that bylaw number 4515 be referred to public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Cirillo. It was like a 7-way tie. I'm sorry. Councillor Cirillo.
I just wanted to thank staff for bringing this one forward. So that was it. I wanted to thank them.
Thank you, staff. There we go. The question is first reading and a public hearing. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Next item, item 6, is zoning amendment bylaw 4513. This is for a proposed subdivision at 928 Walls Avenue. Staff recommendations that council give first reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw 4513 and that bylaw 4513 be referred to public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question of the planning department. This looks like from all the attachments we have that this is the first such subdivision on that street, and I just wanted to confirm that bit of information. We're going to these narrow lots, proposed narrow lot here.
Your Worship, I would share that observation. I don't believe there's anything else in the immediate vicinity. I can take that away and check with staff as well if there's something a little further afield, but I think within that area it's identified for neighborhood attached residential. This would be one of the pioneering applications.
Yeah. So it would be very interesting then to hear what the public has to say at the public hearing. Thank you. That's all. Yep. Good.
I expect we will. Councillor Cirillo on that.
I just wanted to ask about the neighborhood plan, which neighborhood plan this is falling into, and if I didn't see the information on the neighborhood plan here.
This is in the Millardville neighborhood plan, except for the planning department doesn't think it's in Millardville, but apart from that, it's in Millardville. Mr. McIntyre.
Your Worship, of course I'm going to agree with you, but for a different reason. I think actually technically it isn't Millardville. I believe Rochester is the, it's a bit of a fuzzy line between Austin and Millardville in that area, but it's under the Millardville neighborhood plan.
Eric.
So do residents, like, is there a published plan? Because I didn't see it in the report. In the published plan right now, is there information about the subdivision of lots? Have residents already seen this as an idea for this area?
Mr. McIntyre.
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing I should point out, because the rezoning application is consistent with the official community plan, there hasn't been that Section 879 consultation. That's maybe what Councillor Cirillo is familiar with. Some of our applications where it goes together, it's an official community plan amendment and a rezoning, and there's that early ongoing, so there's that consultation before the public hearing. So in this case, because the rezoning is consistent with the official community plan, there wasn't that. So if council supports this bylaw going forward, there would be the normal public hearing notification at that time. In terms of the land use, yeah, when the neighborhood plan was done, we would have talked about the neighborhood attached residential area and the various options you can do within that, and one of them was that through this rezoning, you could subdivide down to 2 33-foot lots. You could build a duplex, a little more property, you could triplex, fourplex, carriage houses. You know, in those variety of projects we've seen under the Heritage Choices program in the last year or so. So it would have been, people would have been made aware sort of generally at that time. As well, going back a few years prior to that, when we first launched the Housing Choices program, there was a lot of consultation. So people would have been aware as well. But this may be, if council supports the rezoning going to public hearing, for that neighborhood being notified, that maybe the first time that they're actually aware that something's proposed.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. McIntyre. And since I've been in this chair, I don't think I've ever turned down the opportunity for first reading, but I'm not at all comfortable with this timing, and I'm not sure that this is the stress that we've put on our neighborhoods. I'm not sure that this is in the best interest of the neighborhood. Again, I've underlined the corporate objective of supporting neighborhoods, and I haven't seen the proof of that in this report. So I, for the first time ever, I will not be voting to go to first reading. Thank you.
Councillor Corr.
You know, here's one that could have been easily become a monster house. Very easy. They had enough land and everything, but they chose to build a duplex.
Two
separate houses. Two separate houses. That's right. So it's like two separate houses. And I think that's something that we should be looking at. In these areas, the old established areas of Coquitlam, we should be looking. These people that are buying these great big lots, that they don't have to lose value. They don't have to lose a whole lot of things. Give them a chance to build two houses instead of one monster house. To where you see this monster house that I know one here in Coquitlam, it's got 3 kitchens, about 6 bedrooms or 7 or whatever it is, and many, many other things there that should not be allowed. And the residents in the area and other areas of Coquitlam are saying, we don't want monster houses. This is one way that we could probably, as our new bylaw proceeds, to put this bylaw in to where you say, okay, you build 2 houses instead of 1. And I think that they get their money back, a good investment, makes a good investment, makes good sense for the neighbors and also for the council members that don't have to listen about these monster houses on a daily basis. And I think that precisely the dish sum that we should be adopting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, in fact, this is something that we did adopt. We call it Housing Choices. And the intent was to give a range of options for these larger lots. This is a 60 by 120. It's a quarter-acre gross density. And when you deal with that, we know that the lot value is somewhere, the residual lot value is somewhere around $550,000, $600,000. We know that the end product will sell for $1.5 to $2 million, and that's unsustainable. It obviously is going to have some suites in it. It's not just going to have the one, it's going to have 2. And we're going to have all kinds of challenges associated with the size of the building in relation to the other buildings in the neighborhood. And so we adopted a package called Housing Choices, which is aimed at trying to give them other options, giving them a carrot, rather than just the stick of a bylaw that restricts what you can build, gives them some carrots that say you can still build some significant development, but it's going to be in smaller homes that are more affordable, that perhaps are aimed at putting children back in our schools locally and in really reopening and reinvigorating our neighborhoods, because the homes are going to be smaller and they're going to be more affordable. And this is actually, I would have, looking at this particular property, I note that it's developable in lots of different ways, not necessarily this one. This is a pretty simple subdivision, and I'll support it, but I want to see more and more of the development industry looking at how do we make it so that some sensitive redevelopment of existing neighborhoods, some sensitive densification, as Councillor Reid says, some respectful densification of the neighborhood can take place with homes that are similar size to the ones that they're replacing, but perhaps more of them on the lot and more of them in the neighborhood, supplying more families and more children with the good neighborhood that we want them to live in, the kinds of densities that will support public transit and support the local schools. This is a step in the right direction, and I'll support it at first reading. We see no one else. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Zarrillo is opposed. The motion carries.
Next item, item 7, concerns the 2015 council meeting schedule. The recommendation from staff is that council approve the 2015 council meeting schedule as set out in the report.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. I think that this one should be left for the new council after November the 15th. What we're doing is trying to tell the new council what is going to happen as far as the meetings are going to concern. For instance, one for me, council and committee is totally out. I'm not in favor of that. I'm wasting the staff's time and the council's time from every Monday from 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening to be discussing with a whole bunch of department heads sitting there wasting their time. And I'm talking about wasting their time when they could be sitting doing their work in their offices that need to be done. So that is totally out as far as I'm concerned. It's a waste of time and many other things. Public hearings, to me, I would never support it having on a Monday night. Should be public hearing on its own one night on a Thursday night to where the council members can go home, what they heard about at the council meeting, at the public hearing, and be able to weigh out in their own mind whether they're going to support it or not support it. Strategic Planning Standing Committee, I think the same thing. I think there's many things in here that should be done by the new council, not at this particular time. I think the whole situation, we need to streamline our operations to where it takes a lot less council time. They can be more productive in other ways, and also less time as far as the staff is concerned. The staff are overburdened with these silly meetings that I'm calling, and pardon my expression, Mayor, but to me they're silly meetings. You know, to have a 2 o'clock meeting till 7 o'clock, quite often not even finish it, you know, to be discussing something that can be discussed at an evening meeting on the first and third Monday. You know, we don't need to have council meetings every Monday. It's also another waste of time having 4 council meetings a month. I think
we have 3.
2 is ample.
We have 3.
2 is ample, so, you know, or whatever it is. To me, Mayor, I think what's happening, that we've got ourselves into a hole that needs to be dug out and streamlined. Because the way we're operating, we're doomed. There's no question about it. We're killing the staff, and the staff is not near as productive as they could be. For instance, you know, we'll have a meeting starting at 12 noon. We'll have a public hearing. One meeting, we sat here till 1:30 in the morning. The staff comes in at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're sitting all day and then listening to us all afternoon, all evening. They put in 16, 18 hours. We put in 12. So I'm just saying to myself, then how good is our staff the next morning? Are they productive? Not at all. Not at all. They can't be with those long hours. So what we're doing is not only burning out the staff, we're burning out the council members. So to me, I'd change that totally. I think it's a waste of time. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'll not be supporting this. I think we should leave it to the new council of 2015.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. This is the procedure we normally adopt. We adopt the schedule so that staff will have some indication in October, 3 months in advance of the beginning of the new year, so that they can start working on schedules and such. On council meetings, just to be clear, on council meeting days, staff are not required to come in at 8 a.m. A great many of them I know come in later in the day because the meeting starts at 2 p.m. and it sometimes goes late, and they want to be able to work through that. There's a wide range of issues that council has adopted here, and this report reflects council's perspective for the last 6 years about the meeting schedule. And this isn't my perspective. I don't get to see this report until it arrived this weekend in our package, and I'm perfectly fine with revisiting it at some point. The intent, I think staff's intent, is give us an indication now that this is what we're originally planning for, and then the new council has every right to take it upon themselves to revisit elements or all of it and make changes. But at least staff are able to start planning for the new year now rather than waiting until the second week of December to start trying to book meetings into January. So I've got Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I agree somewhat with Councillor Sikora, not everything, but somewhat. The ones I have difficulty with are the council and committee, because I feel that we need to have more teamwork here. I really feel that each one of us sitting around here has certain talents that we can offer that would make the whole process be much more streamlined and could work on some kind of a quasi-committee system. And I believe that's what I would like to do, so that staff and council get together, and that actually, I mean, I look at other cities, and quite often different councillors are in charge of different facets of the running of the community, and we have a big teamwork effort and we move forward. So this is not a decision or a discussion for tonight, but I really think this is doing something that the new council coming in should do as well. So my question to Mr. Gilbert, if we approve this and the new council comes in on November 17th, they can immediately change it, can they?
Absolutely. If and it was noted bottom of page 1 and top of page 2 of the report, it's absolutely the prerogative of the new council to be able to change it. And indeed, the schedule can be changed over the course of a year at any time.
Yeah, I support giving staff a heads up on some of the council meetings, but I really think that we're a growing city and we need to have a bit more hands-on, and we need to be a bit more proactive than reactive. So, but the mayor and I have already had this discussion last year, I think. So I will support it because it can be redone after the election. Thank you.
To be clear, the new council can address it after December 1st, inaugural meeting, not directly after the election. Yeah. No, that's all. It's subtly different. It's a couple of weeks. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't repeat a whole lot of things that have been said. I wonder if it would be either the clerk could confirm or we could provide direction that this come to the new council at an early meeting in the new mandate. Thank you. Approved tonight.
Approved tonight and be brought
and just be brought forward in December.
Sure. Yeah, I think we can follow up once post-election, and there'll be a whole series of reports that come before council to set out the program, and as the report notes, that an acting mayor schedule will go forward at that time, so there's plenty of opportunities in which this item can be brought back.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Asmussen.
Well, thank you. I'm going to support the calendar, the scheduled meetings. I think it's important to get that out there. And every year, council has their opportunity to delve into the committee structure that we use. Now, I've been here 9 years. We've tried various structures, and this one actually is probably the most efficient structure for processing, having everything on one day so people know that a Monday is council public hearing. It's not a Thursday or Wednesday or different days here. It creates consistency in the knowledge of people. And we've done the other thing where councillors, we've had standing committees where 3 councillors, we wanted all the councillors sitting on the standing committees, and we've had specialists which didn't agree with the council, didn't agree with their positions. So this one, we're the committee of the whole, we're all together, and we're here together. We get all our opinions on the table, has worked the best out of all those systems. But that's something for the new council to decide, as it does every year when we come up with our committees and our structures and reapprove them every year. But I'll be supporting the council meeting schedule for 2/15 so staff can plan and move ahead. Thank you.
Okay. And I'll be supporting the schedule as presented. Actually, and oddly enough, about the only thing the incoming mayor gets to decide is the committee structure and appointments, which is about half of what is here. It's the committee structure. Last time I actually left it up to council. I asked council for their opinion, and there seemed widespread support for the idea of committee of the whole, largely because we tried both structures and committees. The 3 committees didn't work as well, largely because we ended up with 3 people perhaps coming to some agreement or not at committee, and then it coming to council and council voting down the committee recommendation, or in some cases, the committee reversing itself when they're in council, and council being the ones trying to support the committee recommendation and the committee actually voting against their own recommendation. So I want to find I really want council's input. I think the mayor ought to seek council's input and try to find out what they think would work best. And that's a decision for December. It's not a decision for now. Today, though, we need to provide some indication of the schedule, and the schedule's before us. I'm supportive of the schedule as it is here, and I see no other speakers. The question is the 2015 council meeting schedule is set out in the report of the city clerk. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed. The motion carries. Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Asmundson to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. I want to thank you all for coming out. I note some candidates in the audience, and that's one of the reasons, because we're so close to the election, we don't have a question period. That's the standing order, is that 30 days prior to the election, there's no question period. But we thank you all for coming out. We're certainly here to answer any of your questions anyway. It's just not on camera. Thank you so much.